In just 36 seconds, one comment turned a friendly interview into an explosive showdown that ended with security escorting a former duchess off the set. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping moment, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this outrageous behavior, because trust me, you're going to have some opinions after hearing what went down. So let's get into it. Jon Stewart's late-night show has always been known for asking the tough questions, the real questions that other hosts shy away from. He's built a reputation on keeping it honest, calling out hypocrisy wherever he sees it, and treating every guest the same, whether they're Hollywood royalty or actual royalty. And that's exactly what made this particular interview so explosive. When Meghan Markle walked onto the set that evening, the audience erupted in applause. She smiled, waved, and took her seat across from Jon with the kind of confidence that comes from years in the spotlight. She was there to promote her latest venture, a lifestyle brand that promised to bring authenticity and realness to everyday living. The irony of that tagline wouldn't be lost on anyone by the end of the night. Jon started off friendly, as he always does. He welcomed her warmly, complimented her outfit, and eased into the conversation with some softball questions about her new business. Meghan answered with rehearsed precision, hitting all the talking points her team had clearly prepared. Everything seemed perfectly normal for the first few minutes. "So tell us about this new brand," Jon said, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. "What made you want to start this particular venture?" Meghan launched into her pitch. "Well, Jon, I've always been passionate about helping people live their best lives. This brand is about bringing luxury and wellness to everyone, not just the privileged few. It's about democratizing elegance." Jon nodded along, but anyone who knows his style could see the wheels turning. He wasn't going to let the corporate speak slide for too long. "Democratizing elegance," Jon repeated, a slight smile playing at his lips. "That's interesting. Can you break that down for us? What does that actually mean in practical terms?" Meghan shifted slightly in her seat. "It means making high-quality products accessible to regular people. Products that I personally use and believe in. And these products," Jon continued, pulling out his notes, "they retail for how much? I'm seeing prices here ranging from $80 for a candle to $500 for a bathrobe. Help me understand how that's accessible to regular people." The audience fell quiet. You could feel the temperature in the room change. Meghan's smile tightened just a fraction. "Well, Jon, quality costs money. We're not cutting corners. These are ethically sourced, sustainably made products. You're paying for craftsmanship, right?" "Absolutely," Jon said, his tone still friendly but his eyes sharp. "I'm just thinking about the regular people you mentioned. The average American household income is around $70,000 a year. That's before taxes. So we're talking about people choosing between a $500 bathrobe and, say, groceries for a month. Where does your brand fit into that reality?" Meghan's composure cracked slightly. "I think you're oversimplifying things, Jon. People make choices about what they value. If someone values self-care and wellness, they'll invest in quality products." "Invest?" Jon echoed. "That's one way to put it. Another way might be that luxury marketing has convinced people they need expensive things to practice self-care. But let's move on." You could see Meghan wasn't happy with where this was going, but Jon was just getting started. He flipped through his notes again. "I want to ask you about something you said in a recent interview. You talked about your struggles with privacy, about how difficult it's been living in the public eye. But you've also signed deals with streaming platforms. You're launching this very public brand. You're doing interviews like this one. How do you reconcile wanting privacy with actively seeking the spotlight?" Meghan's jaw tightened. "Those are two completely different things, Jon. I can want boundaries in my personal life while still doing my professional work. Everyone deserves that separation." "Everyone does," Jon agreed. "But most people don't call press conferences to announce they want privacy. Most people don't do tell-all interviews while simultaneously asking to be left alone. Can you see how that might come across as contradictory?" "What I can see," Meghan said, her voice taking on an edge, "is that you're twisting my words. You're doing exactly what the media has always done to me. You're creating a narrative that isn't true." "I'm literally quoting you," Jon said calmly, holding up a printed article. "These are your words from an interview 3 weeks ago. I'm not twisting anything. I'm asking you to explain what seems like a contradiction. That's what we do here. We have conversations about complicated things." Meghan leaned back and crossed her arms. The audience was completely silent now, everyone sensing that something big was building. You know what, Jon? I came here thinking this would be a respectful conversation. I thought you were different from the others. But you're just like every other journalist who's tried to tear me down. I'm not trying to tear you down, Jon said, his voice still even and measured. I'm trying to understand your perspective, but you have to admit, there are some legitimate questions here. You've positioned yourself as a voice for the marginalized, for the voiceless. But you're also selling luxury products that most marginalized people could never afford. You've talked about media intrusion while courting media attention. These aren't attacks. These are observations that a lot of people have made. A lot of people, Meghan repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You mean the trolls, the haters, the people who have had it out for me from day one? I mean regular viewers, Jon clarified. People who are trying to square what you say with what you do, and I think they deserve some clarity. Meghan uncrossed her arms and leaned forward, her eyes flashing. Do you know what it's like to have the entire world picking apart everything you say and do? Do you have any idea the pressure I've been under? I don't, Jon admitted. But I do know what it's like to be held accountable for my words and actions. That's part of being a public figure. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to seek the platform without accepting the scrutiny that comes with it. Scrutiny, Meghan scoffed. Is that what you call this? This feels more like an ambush. An ambush? Jon's eyebrows went up. I sent your team a list of topics we'd be discussing. Your publicist approved everything. These aren't surprise questions. Maybe not to you, Meghan shot back. But the tone, the way you're framing everything, it's clearly biased. You've already made up your mind about me. Jon sat back in his chair, his expression serious. Meghan, I haven't made up my mind about anything. That's why I'm asking questions. But I have to say, the defensiveness isn't helping your case. If these questions feel unfair to you, maybe that's something worth examining. Oh, so now I'm being defensive? Meghan's voice was rising now. Of course I'm defensive. You're attacking me on national television. I'm not attacking you, Jon said firmly. I'm interviewing you. There's a difference. And if you can't tell the difference between tough questions and attacks, that says more about you than it does about me. The audience gasped. It was a direct hit, and everyone knew it. Meghan's face flushed red. How dare you, she said quietly, her voice shaking with anger. How dare you sit there and lecture me about accountability when you're the one blindsiding me with gotcha questions? They're not gotcha questions, Jon insisted. They're basic questions about the things you've said publicly. If you can't answer them, that's fine. But don't blame me for asking. Meghan stood up abruptly, her microphone pack pulling at her dress. You know what? I don't have to sit here and take this. I agreed to come on this show as a courtesy, to talk about my business, not to be interrogated like a criminal. Sit down, please, Jon said, his voice calm but firm. We're in the middle of a conversation. No, Meghan said sharply. This conversation is over. You're clearly not interested in hearing what I actually have to say. You just want to make me look bad. I want you to answer straightforward questions, Jon replied. That's literally my job. And if you walk off this set right now, you're going to make yourself look bad. I'm giving you a chance to explain yourself. I don't need to explain myself to you or anyone else, Meghan snapped. I'm done being judged by people who have no idea what I've been through. Jon's expression hardened slightly. Here's the thing, though. You're asking people to buy your products, to support your brand, to listen to your voice. They have every right to ask questions. They have every right to expect consistency between your words and your actions. And if you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. That did it. Meghan's face contorted with rage. You entitled, arrogant man, she hissed. You sit up here in your comfortable studio playing the everyman, pretending you're some champion of truth. But you're just another privileged white man who can't stand to see a woman, especially a woman of color, succeed on her own terms. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Jon's expression didn't change, but you could see the flash of anger in his eyes. Wow, he said quietly. So that's where we're going with this? You're going to play the race card and the gender card because you don't like being asked questions? It's not a card, Meghan shot back. It's reality. You wouldn't be asking a white male guest these kinds of aggressive questions. Yes, I absolutely would, Jon said, his voice rising for the first time. I've asked these exact kinds of questions to countless guests of every race, gender, and background. That's what I do. I don't give anyone a free pass just because of who they are. That's called integrity. Integrity? Meghan laughed bitterly. You don't know the meaning of the word. You're a bully with a microphone, and you're someone who can't handle the slightest bit of pushback, Jon countered. You want everyone to treat you like royalty, to bow down and accept everything you say without question. But that's not how the real world works. The real world? Meghan's voice was shrill now. What do you know about the real world? You've been famous for decades. You've never had to deal with what I've dealt with. You're right, Jon said. I've never married into the British royal family. I've never had that level of privilege and platform. But I've also never complained about it while simultaneously profiting from it. Profiting? Meghan was practically shouting now. I've been traumatized. I've been harassed. I've been driven to the brink by the media and by people like you. People like me? Jon repeated slowly. You mean journalists? People who ask questions? Because if that drives you to the brink, you need to seriously reconsider your career choices. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. I'm leaving. This is ridiculous. You're ridiculous. Go ahead, Jon said, gesturing to the exit. Walk off. Prove my point. Show everyone watching that you can dish it out, but you can't take it. I don't have to prove anything to you, Meghan spat. No, but you do have to prove something to them, Jon said, pointing to the audience. These are the regular people you claim to care about, the ones you're selling democratized elegance to. And right now, they're watching you have a meltdown because someone dared to question you. Meghan turned to face the audience, her eyes wild. You people don't understand. None of you understand what it's like to be in my position. One audience member shouted back, We understand you're acting entitled right now. The crowd murmured in agreement. Meghan's face went pale, then red again. She whirled back to Jon. This is your fault. You turned them against me. I didn't do anything, Jon said calmly. You did this yourself. Every word that came out of your mouth, every reaction, every accusation, that was all you. I just asked questions. Questions designed to make me look bad, Meghan insisted. No, Jon said firmly. Questions designed to get real answers. And instead of answering them, you attacked me. You played victim, and you insulted the intelligence of everyone watching. That's on you. Meghan's hands were shaking as she tried to unhook her microphone. Where's my team? Someone get me out of here. A producer rushed onto the stage, trying to calm her down. Meghan, please, let's take a breath and... Don't tell me to take a breath, Meghan snapped at the producer. Get me off this stage right now. Jon watched the chaos unfold with an almost sad expression. You know what the really tragic thing is? He said, his voice carrying over the commotion. You actually had some good points buried in there. About media responsibility. About the challenges of public life. But you undermined all of it by refusing to engage honestly. You had a chance to have a real conversation, and you blew it. Meghan stopped struggling with her microphone and stared at him with pure hatred. You're going to regret this, Jon. You have no idea who you're messing with. The audience gasped at the threat. Jon just shook his head. There it is, he said quietly. The real you. Not the polished brand ambassador. Not the humanitarian. Just someone who threatens people when things don't go their way. I'm done, Meghan announced to no one in particular. Someone call my car. I'm leaving. The producer tried one more time. Meghan, if we could just... Now! Meghan screamed. Get me out of here now! Jon stood up from his desk. You heard her. She wants to leave. Let her leave. Meghan looked at him with disgust. You're gonna pay for this. My lawyers will be in touch. About what? Jon asked, genuinely curious. What exactly did I do that was illegal? I asked you questions. You didn't like them. You had a tantrum. That's not a legal issue. That's a you issue. This interview is over, Meghan declared, as if she had the authority to make that decision. Yeah, I think we established that already, Jon replied dryly. Security appeared at the side of the stage, unsure what to do. The producer whispered something to them, and they approached cautiously. Don't touch me, Meghan warned them. I'll walk myself out, then walk, Jon said. No one's stopping you. Meghan grabbed her purse tighter and started toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly on the studio floor. But she couldn't resist turning back one more time. You know what your problem is, Jon? You think you're better than everyone else. You think your little comedy show gives you the right to judge people. I don't think I'm better than anyone, Jon said tiredly. But I do think I have the right to ask questions. That's literally what this show is. It's conversations, discussions, exchanges of ideas. If you're not willing to participate in that, you shouldn't agree to come on. I participated, Meghan said. You attacked. If that's what you think happened here, then I really can't help you, Jon said. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to air this entire segment, unedited, and let the viewers decide who was reasonable and who wasn't. Meghan's eyes widened. You wouldn't dare. Try me, Jon said. You came on this show voluntarily. You signed a release. Everything that happened here is fair game. And honestly, I think people deserve to see it. They deserve to see how you react when you don't get the softball treatment. This is defamation, Meghan sputtered. This is you running out of arguments, Jon finished. Look, you can leave, or you can sit back down and we can actually have the conversation you claim you wanted to have. But either way, you need to make a decision because we're on a schedule here. Meghan looked around wildly, at the cameras, at the audience, at the crew members, watching with varying expressions of shock and secondhand embarrassment. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. Air it. Show the world how you treat your guests. Let's see how that works out for you. I'm willing to take that risk, Jon said. Are you? That question hung in the air for a long moment. Meghan seemed to realize, finally, that she'd backed herself into a corner. She'd thrown accusations, made threats, and had a very public meltdown, all on camera. And now Jon was calling her bluff. I hate you, she said simply. You don't know me well enough to hate me, Jon replied. But I understand you're upset. And I hope, when you calm down, you'll think about why these questions made you so angry. Because they weren't unreasonable. They just weren't what you wanted to hear. Meghan's face crumpled slightly, and for just a second, she looked like she might cry. But then she pulled herself together, lifted her chin, and walked toward the exit with as much dignity as she could muster, which wasn't much at this point. The security guards followed at a respectful distance as she stormed through the backstage area. The audience sat in stunned silence, not sure if they should applaud or stay quiet. Jon turned back to his desk and sat down heavily. He looked directly into the camera. Well, he said with a slight smile, that was something. For everyone at home wondering if that really just happened? Yes, it did. And before anyone accuses me of ambushing a guest or being unfair, I want to be very clear. Every question I asked tonight was sent to her team in advance. Every topic was approved. What you just witnessed wasn't me being a bully. It was someone who's used to controlling the narrative, realizing she couldn't control this one. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Look, I don't take pleasure in making guests uncomfortable. That's not why I do this job. But I also won't pretend that tough questions are attacks. I won't walk on eggshells because someone has a title or a platform or a brand to protect. Everyone who sits in that chair gets the same treatment. Rich, poor, famous, unknown, I ask them real questions and I expect real answers. And if that's too much for someone, they probably shouldn't be in the public eye. The audience started to applaud, tentatively at first, then with more enthusiasm. Now, Jon continued, I'm sure we'll hear from her team. There will probably be statements and accusations and maybe even legal threats. But I stand by every word I said tonight, and I challenge anyone who thinks I was out of line to watch this interview again and tell me what I should have done differently. Should I have just let her promote her $500 bathrobes without questioning the accessibility claims? Should I have nodded along when she talked about privacy while doing publicity tours? Should I have ignored the contradictions? He shook his head. I couldn't do that. I won't do that. Because the moment I start giving people a pass just because of who they are, I've lost my integrity. And that's the one thing I'm not willing to lose. Backstage, they could hear raised voices. Meghan was apparently still making her displeasure known to anyone within earshot. The audience exchanged glances, some amused, some shocked, all riveted. Jon glanced toward the noise and smiled slightly. Sounds like someone's not happy, but you know what? That's okay. It's okay to leave an interview unhappy if the questions were hard. It means something real happened, something authentic. And isn't that what she claims to be all about? The stage manager gave Jon a signal. They needed to wrap up. All right, we need to take a quick break, Jon said to the camera. When we come back, we'll try to get back to our regularly scheduled programming, assuming we don't have any more guests threatening to sue us. Stick around. The lights dimmed for the commercial break, and the studio erupted in chatter. Crew members gathered in small groups, replaying what they'd just witnessed. The audience members turned to each other, talking rapidly, some laughing in disbelief, others shaking their heads. Jon stayed at his desk, reviewing his notes, looking remarkably calm for someone who'd just had such a confrontational encounter. A producer approached him cautiously. That was intense, the producer said. Are we really going to air all of that? Every second, Jon confirmed. Unedited. The truth is, the best defense against whatever spin she tries to put on this. Her team is already calling, the producer reported. They want the footage killed. Jon looked up sharply. Absolutely not. She signed the release. She knew what she was getting into. And quite frankly, the public needs to see this. They need to see what happens when someone who's built their brand on being relatable and authentic gets asked to actually be those things. The producer nodded and walked away. Jon turned back to his notes, already thinking about how to frame the rest of the show. In the hallway outside, Meghan was on her phone, her voice carrying despite the closed doors. "I don't care what you have to do," she was saying. "Get that footage, threaten them, sue them. I don't care, that cannot air. Do you understand me? That cannot air." But it was too late. The damage was done, not from the questions, but from her reaction to them. She'd shown everyone watching exactly who she was when the mask slipped, and no amount of PR spin was going to change what people had seen with their own eyes. Back in the studio, the lights came back up. Jon straightened his papers and looked into the camera with that familiar, slightly mischievous grin. "Welcome back," he said. "For those just joining us, you missed quite a show. But don't worry, we'll be replaying that segment extensively, probably for years to come. It's not every day you get to witness someone completely unraveling in real time." The audience laughed, the tension breaking slightly. "Now I know some people are going to say I was too hard on her," Jon continued. "They'll say I should have been more gentle, more deferential. But here's the thing about respect. Real respect means treating someone like an adult who can handle tough questions. Fake respect is pretending their nonsense makes sense just because of their status. I choose real respect every time." He looked down at his desk, then back up at the camera. "And you know what? I hope she watches this back when she calms down. I hope she really listens to the questions I asked and thinks about why they made her so defensive. Because there's something valuable in that discomfort. It's called self-reflection. And based on what we just saw, it's something she desperately needs." The audience applauded again, louder this time. They were firmly on Jon's side, which probably wasn't surprising. He'd kept his cool while she'd lost hers. He'd stayed reasonable while she'd gotten emotional. He'd asked legitimate questions while she'd thrown accusations. In the court of public opinion, this wasn't even close. "All right," Jon said, ready to move on. "Let's try to get through the rest of this show without any more drama. Our next guest is an actual regular person who did something extraordinary, and I promise you, I will not make them cry or threaten to sue me." The audience laughed as Jon launched into the next segment, but everyone knew that the Meghan Markle interview would be the only thing anyone remembered from this episode. It would go viral, spawn 1,000 think pieces, and probably define both of their public images for years to come. And in the end, the footage would speak for itself. People would watch and make their own judgments about who was reasonable and who wasn't, who asked fair questions and who overreacted, who kept their composure and who lost it completely.